that haven't bought any gold that are trying to figure out why the other people are. And it's interesting when you hear their rationale because they still haven't bought any. You know, I'll go to the interview with some of these guys. You know, for 5 or 6 years they've been seeing me on these shows, and I keep asking, "Do you have any gold yet?" You know, and you know, even though the price has tripled or quadrupled since the first time they saw me, they still don't own it. And every time it goes down, they're, "Oh, okay, see, we told you it's a bubble," and it goes. So. But they don't understand that when you earn money, you have 2 choices. You can spend it now, or you can spend it later. And spending it later means you save it, you put it aside. And when you're saving your money so that you can spend it in the future, or so that your children can spend it in the future, or somebody's going to spend it, you want to make sure that that purchasing power is preserved over time, maintained. And if you don't believe you can do that, if you don't have confidence in what the dollar would buy in the future, well, then what will you do? Well, you'll own gold instead. And during the 80s and 90s, there was an opportunity cost there, because if you owned gold, well, you missed out on a 7 or 8% CD that you could have owned. Well, now there is no opportunity, because there is no 7 or 8% CD. The CDs are practically zero. And in fact, if you want to get into yield, you'd have to go out and buy 20 or 30-year paper, and then you take a tremendous amount of risk, because if interest rates go up, the value of that paper plunges. So it's a lot safer just to own the gold. And so more and more people are doing that, and that's just going to continue to drive the demand. And of course, the higher it goes, the more people want to buy it, and it shines a light on what's happening in Washington. And so basically, to sum up what I'm talking about, and then I'll take your questions. We haven't solved the problems that led to the financial crisis in 2008. We've exacerbated them all. You know, we've continued to travel in the same direction. We've taken on more and more debt. And for a while, we were able to postpone it because we nationalized the debt. We took $1.5 trillion of toxic debt off the banks and put it onto the Fed. And nobody really seems to worry about it when the Fed owns it, but the debt is still there. We've dramatically increased the balance sheet and therefore the supply of money in circulation. The result of that is that prices for everything have risen when they should have fallen. And we are going to have to confront the fact that rates are going to rise, just like they rose in Greece, or just like they rose in Iceland, or they're rising in Ireland, and now Spain or Portugal. Rates are going to rise here. You know, I remember when the subprime crisis first hit in 2007, everybody was convinced that it was okay because it was just subprime. No, don't worry about it. You know, it's contained. It's not going to spread. And at the time, I was saying and writing that that was not the case. That the problem was for the entire mortgage market, and it wasn't even a case of spreading. Right? The whole market was already affected. It's just that the symptoms showed up in subprime first because those were the more vulnerable mortgages. Most of those mortgages had 2-year teaser rates, whereas most of the prime mortgages had longer periods. And of course, these were loans to even the least creditworthy of the borrowers. So they were the most vulnerable. They were the tip of the iceberg. But there was a lot of ice beneath the surface. I just knew that it hadn't been exposed yet. And I was right. Well, it's the same thing, and the same players, and the same saying with sovereign debt. Oh, it's just Ireland and Portugal and Spain. It's just those pigs. And oh, it's never going to. It's not America. Oh no, we don't have to worry about it. It's not going to spread to America. No, it's not going to spread to America. It's already in America. You know, we already have the same disease. It's just that the symptoms haven't shown up yet because interest rates are still ridiculously low. But they're not going to stay there. They're not going to stay there for much longer. And when it happens, it's going to be just like it was before. Oh my God, this is a 100-year flood. Nobody could have seen this coming. I mean, how many times are we going to have 100-year floods? You know, before they realize that, hey, wait a minute, you know, these aren't random events coming out of left field that nobody could have forecasted. This is a consequence of the monetary and fiscal policies that we're pursuing. And what I want to make sure for the people in this room is when it all hits the fan in a year or two, that you are prepared for it, that you're prepared for it financially, that you see it coming, that you have the right mix of assets in your portfolios, so you're not blindsided. And that's, you know, I think it's been pretty easy over the last 10 years to make money in the markets. Because so many people are so wrong on what they believe. It's like, you know, we're playing a game with people who don't know the rules. And so they're going to keep screwing up, and they're going to keep being surprised by what happens. You know, the people that were buying the financials, and you know, they're still buying those financials. You know, they still haven't figured out what the game is, and they still don't know how it's going to end up. But we have a better understanding of economics, and therefore we understand. It's hard to pick out exactly the timing. You know, there's no way to know a short run what's going to happen day to day, week to week. But we know in the big picture what is going to happen and how it's going to look in the final analysis. And so we just need to make sure that we have our assets positioned to benefit from the final outcome. We know that ultimately the world is going to change, that the leaders are not going to be in Western Europe and the United States. What's going to dominate the global economy is the Far East, Southeast Asia, China, India, parts of the Middle East. That's going to be the center of global economic activity. That's where all the wealth is going to be created. And that's where we need to invest. And the standard of living of billions of people that have been suppressed for generations is going to rise. The emerging markets are going to emerge. And with that, many of the developed markets are going to submerge. Because the emerging markets have been subsidizing us. They've been subsidizing America. We've been living beyond our means, and a lot of people can see that we've been living beyond our means, but it's only because the people in China have been living beneath their means. But they're not going to live beneath their means forever. You know, I keep hearing these questions, you know, people ask me all the time, well, you know, Chinese need us. Who's going to buy their goods? They'll buy their goods. They need their goods a lot more than they need our paper. See, no one ever asks me the question, what's going to happen to America without the Chinese stuff? I mean, we're going to have a lot of paper, but what good is that? You know, maybe you can line a bird cage with it, or you can use it to, you know, heat your house, but it's going to burn quickly. You know, but the Chinese are going to have a different problem. They're going to have all this stuff. Of course, when they don't sell the stuff to us, what happens? The price drops, and the Chinese buy it. They get the stuff at lower prices, which is what they need. I mean, when plasma television sets first came out, I remember them there, you know, probably how many people, they were about $10,000 a piece. Remember, how many people paid $10,000 and bought a plasma TV when it first came out? Anybody? How many people own the plasma LCD TVs now? See, a lot of people own them. And why did you buy them? The price came down. That's why you bought them. That's what's going to happen in China. If we stop buying their stuff, the price will come down in their money because their currency will rise. And they'll all buy the stuff. You know, it's, you know, people think that the Chinese don't want things. Of course they want things. They're just priced out of the market right now. But you know, you have people, you have Chinese workers that are working in factories, making washing machines and dryers, and then they go home and they wash their clothes in a bucket and they hang them up on clothespins in their backyard. Like they don't want those washer and dryer machines? Of course they do. Of course they want them. And you know what? They can afford them because they're making them. It's the Americans who can't afford them because we're not making them. You know, people think that, you know, it's supply that creates demand. That's where it comes from. Without supply, demand is nothing but desire. But if you want to actually be able to buy something, it has to be made. And once it's made, it's going to be bought. The question is, who's going to get it? And right now, it's Americans that get it, but we're getting it with China's money. But when China stops, and their economy will grow much more rapidly when their own citizens get the fruits of their labor. I mean, we've got the Chinese convinced. See, this is the deal we made with China. They get the jobs, and we get the stuff. But the only reason that you want a job is to have the stuff. See, if we can get the stuff without working, why work? You know, and all China's got is the work. See, that was slavery. You know, but the slaves, you know, they got emancipated. You know, they're waiting for that in China when they could be emancipated out of this situation where they're working and we benefit. So that's going to change, and so you have to understand that, and then you have to reposition your assets and your investments to take advantage of the fact that those currencies are going to rise and the relative wealth and affluence of that part of the world is going to increase. And as China's wages increase because their money is more valuable, their assets are more valuable, you want to own those assets and be positioned. And unfortunately, we're going to see a very big drop in the living standards of the West, particularly the United States. The United States became a wealthy country because we produced everything. And we produced everything because we were free. We had very low taxes and very few regulations, and so we were productive, and because we produced a lot, we were able to consume a lot. Now we are able to consume a lot, despite the fact that we're no longer productive. We have big government, high taxes, numerous regulations, central government planning, a welfare state, but we still consume because the rest of the world is letting us consume what they produce because they have more. But that's all going to change. And the key that I don't really know the answer to yet is how is America going to react when this happens? Are we going to realize the source of our problems is government and try to turn back the clock and try to re-embrace the foundation that our founders gave us in the Constitution to go back to a limited government so that we can rebuild a vibrant economy, maybe one day, take the torch back from the Chinese closer to the end of the century? Or are we going to go further towards the left, and are we going to, it's all the fault of capitalism, we need more government planning, we need more regulations, and then we're just an economic wasteland. And then who knows, I mean, we might have to have a violent revolution sometime in the future. But I don't know which way that's going to go. I'm hoping that we take the former path, and hopefully, my voice and other voices in the United States will get a little more respect as more of these forecasts come true, and people realize. But anyway, let me open this up and take questions. Do you have them all written down on these papers?
Hi, Peter.
Yeah.
I think everyone in the audience has asked a question.
Yeah.
So we're busy sorting here. I can tell you that there's a lot of questions on the housing markets. I think Russell and David selected some of the best ones there, and we'll continue to sort here.
I think we can read.
Okay.
I mean, this is a good broad-based question that I appreciate. So, in your opinion, Peter, why is Canada ignored internationally as a safe haven?
Well, I don't think it's ignored. I mean, I talk about it, and I do believe that the Canadian dollar, I think even as a reserve currency, I think some central banks have mentioned that they were increasing their allocation to Canadian dollars. But, I mean, Canada is, in the scheme of things, it's relatively small. And so that's probably it. Maybe some people look at Canada as, northern part of, very close to the U.S., so maybe they don't think it's as much of a diversification. But I mean, I think for anybody who wants U.S. dollars, I mean, it's stupid. Why buy U.S. dollars when you can buy Canadian dollars? I mean, if that's your choice. If I could only hold one currency, Canada or U.S., it's a no-brainer that I would take Canada. And when I was a kid, we used to try to, if we had Canadian money, we used to try to get them in vending machines.